Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I am here with my October wrap-up. We are in my bedroom today because it's fall and I don't have really any south-facing windows and I live in the forest on a hill. So after about noon this time of year, I don't have any lighting. So I'm here with my October wrap-up and I don't want to say it's a pointless video because that sounds really bad, but there's only one book in this entire video that didn't make it into a reading vlog at some point where my full thoughts are. So if you watch my reading vlogs, you'll already have known all my really in-depth thoughts on all of these books except one. I'm just going to kind of go through them relatively quickly, and then if you want my full thoughts, obviously I will link the videos down below and in the cards as well. The first book that I read this month was actually the one and only book that I didn't vlog, and that was Bright Lights Big Christmas by Mary Kay Andrews. This was so disappointing to me. I read Santa Suit last year and I actually really loved it. I did. I gave it I think like 4 stars or something. It was just a really cute, wholesome, hallmarky kind of Christmas story, which sometimes I am really in the mood for. I definitely prefer my romance smutty, but sometimes I'm just in the mood for something a little more wholesome. When I saw that she was coming out with a new Christmas book, I was like, oh, I'm probably really gonna like that one since I actually enjoyed Santa Suit way more than I thought that I would. But this one was not it for so many reasons. The writing was really, really choppy. The characters were super unlikable. It didn't feel Christmassy actually, which is odd because it's about a woman who goes to New York with like her family Christmas tree business, sorry, to sell the Christmas trees. So they're like on a lot in New York City selling Christmas trees. Like you'd think that would be so Christmassy, but it just wasn't. It didn't like really focus on like the holiday spirit and the vibes of New York during Christmas time. We barely got any of that ambiance, which really sucked. So it was just kind of a letdown. It didn't honestly feel like a Christmas book at all, which was weird considering the plot. On top of that, there was a couple problematic things for me with this one. I don't want to generalize because that I feel like is harmful in a lot of ways, no matter what. But this kind of fiction, you know, really wholesome, clean fiction, Hallmark-esque, I think tends to go for a certain audience. Tends to, I would say. Which I would argue is like middle-aged Christian white women. I'm not saying other people cannot enjoy these books, but I would say that's probably the majority and that's probably the intended audience. And so you never in these types of books really get a lot of diversity. So I was happy at first when I was reading and there were 2 gay characters. There were 2 gay men in this book. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm kind of surprised by this because typically like Hallmark movies, it's so hetero, it's not even funny. So I was like, okay, we're having 2 characters in here who aren't straight. That's, you know, a start. I'm not saying it's great representation, but I'm saying it's a start. But then they were so stereotypical that I was like, what was the point? Like, people would rather have, I would argue, no representation from people who aren't own voices than bad representation. Make sure that it's fucking right. Get beta readers, get sensitivity readers, do your fucking research. Just don't put it in if you're gonna be offensive and stereotypical. Also, there was a part in here that was a little smutty. They finally, after like weeks and weeks and weeks of like pining, they finally are like starting to kiss and like about ready to fuck. And she goes, I wrote down this quote because I was like, she said,
I hope this doesn't make me sound too slutty, but I want this as bad as you do.
So, and my comment was, yeah, you're such a fucking whore for wanting consensual sex as an adult woman with another consensual grown man. You fucking whore. I hope this doesn't make me sound too slutty for wanting sex as a grown-ass woman with a man who also wants that sex probably as much as you do, but you know he's not thinking, oh, I hope she doesn't think I'm a slut. You know he's not thinking that. Like, that was so fucking weird. So anyway, so that was that one. I talked about that for a long time, but all the other ones are gonna go by really quick. Then I read 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This was the last book that I read for a like tear test video where I read sad books to see if they would make me cry, and this is the only one that didn't. So That says something. I still gave it 5 stars. This is an amazing story. I absolutely loved it. I also absolutely devoured it in like 24-hour period. And I think about it all the time. It's like slowly becoming my Roman Empire. I think about it actually a lot. And I'm very nervous for the movie that they're coming out with. I'm very nervous. I think this would have been so sick. I wish that they had done a 8-episode series on HBO so it could be vulgar. I wish that they had done an 8-episode series instead, and each episode was a different husband, but then you also had one episode for kind of filler as far as like the aftermath and maybe even possibly the before, you know, and the parts with Monique and stuff like that. So I wish that that's what they were doing. So it makes me nervous trying to, the idea of shoving all this into a movie makes me very nervous. The casting makes me very nervous because I think they could fuck this up so quickly. But yeah, I really love this. If you want my full thoughts, I will link, I always forget which one it is when I put the video into YouTube. I will link the video up above if you want to see absolutely my full thoughts, full reading vlog with this. I'll also link it down below. But that was 5 stars. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. And I did a vlog, which I will link up above and down below as well, where I read horror. And I mainly read horror/horror themed thriller and mysteries for the entire month of October. So all the rest of the books actually are horror. I did a vlog where I just showed reading all of those. You know how reading vlogs work. And the first one that I read was Final Girls by Riley Sager, which I gave 4.5 stars. I absolutely loved this. Loved this. I think that it was so well written and suspenseful, and it was eerie and scary, and it was full-blown like slasher, and the twist completely got me. And I feel like I've stopped enjoying mysteries and thrillers and horror, you know, as much, because I feel like a lot of them are so predictable. And I always say predictability isn't everything, but it is something. And it's like, if I can see a twist coming, it does take away a little bit of that suspense. But this one had me so shook. I literally was just making dinner in the kitchen. I filmed it all, and I was just like, what the fuck? I was so blown away by the twist, and I appreciated that it was realistic. I could wrap my head around it. It made sense for the story, because sometimes that's another issue I fall into with this genre, but I absolutely loved this one. Then I read the Pallbearers Club, which I still don't know. On Goodreads, I give it 3 stars. In the video, I think I said I gave it 2. At one point, I said it was 4. This is the type of book where I don't know how I even feel about it, but I would never want to read it again to try to figure it out. I can't tell you if I loved it or hated it, because I think I kind of loved it and hated it. It was so odd. It was so slow. The writing style, I really appreciated the concept with it being a manuscript and having somebody else come in and, you know, mark and edit all over it and give her perspective through those like annotations. I thought that was a fantastic concept. Very, very cool. But it was slow. There was so much unnecessary elements in it. And I understand this idea of Paul Tremblay wanting to build up the suspense and give you a really slow burn, eerie kind of story. I totally get that, because that's definitely his thing. But it's just not for me. It didn't work for me the way that I really was hoping that it would. But I really appreciated still the lyricism of the writing, and the intention behind it, I think, was done really well. It just didn't necessarily work for me, so it's hard to rate it. So I think I'll probably settle like I did on Goodreads. I settled on a 3-star because I liked a lot of it. I didn't like a lot of it. So I'm honestly kind of just stuck in the middle. Oh, I actually have one more that wasn't in a vlog. My bad. This is a mystery book and a thriller, and that's why I kept thinking it was in that vlog, but I forgot that it didn't have a horror subgenre, so I didn't read it for that vlog. But I did actually read Good Bad Girl by Alice Feeney. I've read every single one of Alice Feeney's books. She is definitely an auto-buy author for me. This was her worst one. Hands down. I still gave it 3 stars just because I do really appreciate the way that she writes. I like her writing style a lot, her cadence. It really works for me. It does wonders. The plot of this one, it didn't even feel like a thriller. Like, a lot of her books, like, especially her first couple, were straight up thriller, like, borderline kind of, like, scary, dark, really twisted, psychological. Like, those could all be used to describe her first couple of releases. But this one was, it honestly felt more like a, like, familial, domestic, literary fiction. You know, kind of some drama, kind of stuff like that. And then it had a hint of thriller. but I didn't really get the full, oh, it's a thriller. I was bored. I was like, you know, I don't really like literary fiction, and this really felt closer to that than an actual just full-blown mystery thriller. The atmosphere and like the eeriness, the vibes that she normally writes with just weren't there. Like I said, I really like her writing style, like her cadence, you know, her tone, like all of those types of things. But what she was saying, really, it just didn't do it for me. The atmosphere wasn't as complete as it normally is. So that sucked. It was definitely the least spooky, the least scary book she's like ever written. She normally writes like the best twists too. Like I feel like she writes really good twists. And this one was just so boring. Like by the end, I literally was like, I don't give a fuck. Like who cares at this point? Like it doesn't really matter. So that sucked. It was low stakes. Then I read When No One Was Watching, and now we're back to the horror reading vlog, and all the rest really are from that reading vlog. I actually really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. The ending was terrible. I think that had the ending been good, it would have been a 5-star for me, but the first like 75–80% were so fantastic that it's still, even with a bad ending, in my opinion, even with a bad ending, it still is a high rating. It's still a 4-star for me. I really enjoyed it, but the ending just, it felt so random. It felt so out of place. It was really action-y as far as like actually, not just like, ooh, you know, a lot's happening, but like actually like do, like it felt like James Bondy kind of, which I just didn't like. You had this like Alyssa Cole wrote this really beautiful like lyrical piece in the beginning where it's just full of kind of this, I don't want to say angst, but just this buildup of suspense, and you're just really trying to figure out what's going on. It's so puzzling and fantastic, and then to have that turn into just kind of what felt like a cheap action movie was just a little surprising and off-putting, to be honest. The beginning was so fantastic that I still have to give it like all the praise in the world, and she has a new thriller coming out next year, and I'm definitely picking that up ASAP. I think it's gonna be great. Then I read The Writing Retreat, which I gave 2 stars. I did not like this one at all. This was definitely the worst book that I read in that video. The writing and pacing were just all over the place. I think if the premise sounded good enough, I would pick up something else that this author writes in the future, just because I think that it had so much potential. It just wasn't executed as well as I wanted it to be. So I think that I would definitely give her another shot. But this one, I did not like it. There were so many plot holes. There were so many errors. Everything was super predictable, and it was just flat. I was saying on Goodreads that I hated giving this a bad rating, but I didn't want to be dishonest. But I hated giving this a bad rating because on Goodreads, there are some fucking trolls on Goodreads. But on Goodreads, people were giving this 1 star just because in the book they mention pronouns. Because it's a writing retreat, obviously, right? So when everybody gets there, they're like, oh, say your names and pronouns. And people were livid that the book even brought that up. And I'm like, how hard is it to just say that, though? Like, just say your pronouns. Why does that hurt you? We use pronouns every single day, all the time. So I do feel bad for contributing to a lower rating of this book when I feel like there are a lot of low ratings already that it doesn't deserve. But it just, I didn't want to be dishonest. It didn't do it for me, so I had to rate it 2 stars. Then the last book that I read this month was When the Reckoning Comes by LaTanya McQueen, and this was a fantastic way to end the month. I give this 4 stars. I finished it on Halloween, it was just a fantastic book to finish on Halloween because it really does have such a good ambiance and a level of eeriness to it that was just unsettling. I think everything that she had to say was also very relevant. It's about how, you know, white people have been coming in and kind of revamping or using plantations as venues and houses, and they're like redoing them as if it wasn't a place of absolutely tragic history. This was just fantastic. I really, really, really enjoyed it. I seriously couldn't stop listening to it. I thought that it was so great, and I loved just the atmosphere and the eeriness, and she hasn't come out with anything since. She has 1 backlist book as far as I can see on Goodreads, but she has nothing else, nothing even on the radar, which makes me a little upset because I really loved her writing style. I would love to devour more, so excited for anything that the future may bring. So that's everything that I read in October. We're already in November, which is wild to me, but I say that every month. And yeah, let me know your favorite thing that you read this month, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!